Afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name's David Jenkinson. I'm Editor-in-Chief and Managing Director of C21 Media, and I have a very distinguished panel with me today who are going to discuss the future of formats. First of all, I'm just going to ask everyone to introduce themselves briefly to you so you know who they are, and then I'm going to run through the report and the survey that we've been working on for the past few months, and then we're going to come back and discuss the findings of that survey. If you do have any questions at any time during the conversation, please do put your hand up once we're beginning our discussion, and we'll try and answer any questions that you have. So without further ado, starting from this end, could you just tell us who you are and what you do?
Yes, I'm Karrie Wolfe. I am Senior VP at Kinetic Content. We're based out of LA, production company, and I co-run the development team. So.
My name is Trond. I run an entertainment house in Norway called Monster. We're here with a few formats, Ultimate Entertainer, Babes on the Bus, and Dinner Disaster.
Cool, thank you.
My name's Jennifer Ebell, and I work for ITV Studios Global Entertainment, who's co-sponsoring this lovely event. And I oversee distribution of finished and formats in the southern EMEA region.
I'm Armoza from Armoza Formats. We are a company based in Tel Aviv, focusing on development and distribution of formats, both scripted and unscripted.
My name is Holger Andersen. I work for the ProSiebenSat.1 group, doing development for the channels there.
And I'm Keren Shahar. I'm head of distribution of Keshet International, which is the international arm of Keshet Broadcasting Israel. And I also do the acquisitions for our channels.
Great, okay. Great lineup. So I'm going to just pull this. Got a bit of a problem with distance here, so I'll be moving around the stage. We're going to start now with an introduction to the report. So during the past 3 months, we've conducted a survey, and we've asked people to tell us what they think about the trends in the formats business. We've also, sorry, here we go. Visually challenged. We had 231 people answer the survey, which is a really reasonable sample, and we asked that group of people a number of questions. These were the questions we asked. Which genres of formats do you think will be less popular in the coming year? Which genres do you think will be more popular? In 2012, were the license fees higher or lower as the same in 2011? Do you expect those format fees to go up in 2013? Do you expect to sell or buy more or fewer formats in 2013? Which countries are hot for producing and acquiring new formats? What's the biggest challenge for the formats business? What is the biggest threat to your business? If you could have one format in your catalogue or on your channel, what would it be and why? What area of the schedule are you currently looking for formats to fill? What types of formats are currently underserved? And what does the format business need to do in order to prosper and grow in 2013? Well, as you can imagine, there was a really broad and varied cross-section of answers to this survey. I think more than anything, what it represented is that there are lots and lots of different views about what works and what doesn't work in formats. But there was some significant agreement on certain things. This particular graph shows the responses to which formats do you think will be less popular in 2013. So travel and competition reality. You might find that these things pop up under what's going to be the most popular in 2013. I don't think in this instance it particularly did, but certainly travel was identified as an area that wasn't going anywhere this year. Which genres or formats do you think will be more popular in 2013? Well, this is where we start to see the first trend. Scripted. The word scripted has crept into formats over the last couple of years. You could answer multiple questions in this answer, so the percentages skew in quite an unusual way. So 58% said that scripted drama was going to be most popular. 41% said scripted reality. So I think the word scripted really creeps in to the conversation early on in the survey. 73% said format license fees were the same or higher in 2012 and 2011, so I don't know how the panel will feel about that, but certainly seems that the sector is relatively buoyant. And this is an interesting one in terms of what people think about the prices going forward. In 2013, as opposed to 2012, 80% said the license fees will be the same or higher this year. So that would suggest the sector is buoyant. Again, be interesting to see what people in the room think about that. 89% of people said they bought the same or more formats in 2012 compared to 2011. That would seem to suggest that the formats business is in good health. Do you expect to sell or buy fewer formats in 2013 or compared to 2012? Again, the majority of people said they expect to buy or sell more formats. This is an interesting one. This is a word cloud which comes from the question which regions of the world are hot for formats right now. There's a couple of weird things further down, like producing, but this has picked up the responses from a word cloud. Israel, number one. That's really interesting. Israel has really pioneered lots of formats in the past few years and done really well in the scripted area. Of course, we know Homeland was adapted from an Israeli format, and there's lots of other scripted stuff in the works there. And we're starting to see Turkey and Brazil creeping up into the sort of the hot for development zone. And these are all the emerging markets, quite aggressively developing economies as well. So perhaps that's worthy of discussion. Then we start to get into the threats and opportunities, and I suppose depending on how you think of this, they're sort of the same thing. Which of the following is the biggest threat to your business? We asked a number of questions. 49% feel that the biggest threat to the business is lower fees from broadcasters, which doesn't sort of quite tally when you think that everyone seems to think that license fees and sales are holding up. So again, it'd be interesting to see what the panel thinks about license fees and the threats to the business. And of course, the other big factor that everyone seems to be concerned about is consolidation of the production sector. These groups coming together and then getting bigger, and what normally happens, of course, is then people spin out of those groups and launch their own indies after a while as well. So that seems to be a cyclic thing. What is the biggest challenge facing the formats industry? Well, we could discuss that for about an hour, actually. The biggest threats to the format industry were varied. These are just some of the things that people said. To get the highest ratings for the same format, but next season. I think that's quite significant because it seems there's a lot of returning shows. There aren't too many, relatively speaking, new shows or breakout hits at the moment. And so broadcasters are playing out formats. They might be 2 years old, they might be 5 years old, no, they might be 10 years old. But one of the things that cropped up time and time again was this returning, how to refresh and return a format that's already in existence. More formats in the market. Clearly the last 5 or 6 years, 10 years perhaps, has really seen more and more producers come into the markets, and more and more people understand that there is a business in formats, so there's more of them around. Keeping things fresh, being original, all of this stuff we talk about all the time. Second to bottom, quite interesting, similar formats distributed by different companies killing the formats market. Well, we all know that once something's a hit, we get versions of it. It's part of what makes formats so great, but it's also what the formats industry feels is a challenge for it. And viewers are more picky. Well, they've got more choice and they can watch formats and television in all sorts of different ways these days. So that was clearly noted. Which area of the schedule are you most looking for formats for? Well, 83% said that prime time, you'd expect that as well. Again, a multiple choice option here, so the percentages don't break down to add up to 100. But 51% of people said they're also looking for formats for access prime time. So that's quite significant. Access prime time, an area for development there. I think we've seen that stronger this year than last year. Then we asked people, what does the format business need to do in order to prosper and grow in 2013? It's very easy to say a lot of this stuff, very difficult to do it. Be original and take chances. Use new platforms and technology. I think we've yet to see, and again, it would be interesting to see what the panel thinks, we've yet to see a format that really brings together a new technology platform like social media, Facebook, Twitter, and traditional entertainment like television. I certainly am not aware of one that's really pushed everything across in the same way that perhaps Big Brother did and created a new style of television programming when that emerged ages ago. And managing costs. Managing costs is clearly important in this day and age. Again, I think this is really interesting. If you could have one format in your catalogue or channel that you don't have right now, what would it be and why? These were the question actually asked from the last 12 months, from the past 12 months. All of these shows a couple of years old at least. There was no significant format mentioned that was new that people really wanted to have. The Voice really dominated in terms of what people would like to have, but The Voice, again, is not a format from the past 12 months. So one conclusion that we have drawn from this, and again, it would be interesting to find out what you in the room think and what the panel thinks, is that there really hasn't been a breakout hit, a real global breakout hit since The Voice. What types of formats do you currently think are underserved? Again, scripted. People want more scripted formats. Drama is starting to really make a comeback, and so people are looking for that in the formats business right now. Studio-based, shiny floor shows, of course everybody wants those for Saturday night, but more multi-platform and interactive stuff as well. We also included it in the report. If you haven't got the formats report, it's this thing. Should be in your bags. It's certainly outside the door. Apart from the survey results, we've also included, I think it's 29 broadcasters, their format strategy coverage from our premium schedule watch strand, which is online on C21. The sorts of channel profiles, the sorts of things that the channels are saying within that report is that drama is pushing entertainment out of prime time. They need to find the next generation of shiny floor shows, surprisingly. There hasn't been enough innovation, and there are too many derivative formats. These things recur. They recur all the time. They recur. So, I asked the panel to read the report and the survey. I'm sure you've all done your homework. And then to think about these questions. What do you expect the trends in formats to be in 2013? How are you doing business differently in 2013 compared to 2012? And if you were to merge two areas of content or technology, subject or genre, to help in the quest for the next big thing, what would they be? That's sort of about development. That's about how people think about development and how they bring together different parts of the business, different topics, different technologies to create a show. It's really simple in theory, very difficult to do in practice. Let's discuss. So, those were the findings of the report. I'm just going to ask each of you very, very briefly to start off with to talk about what you think the trends are for 2013, and maybe to see which parts of the report you agree with and which parts of the report you disagreed. And if we can start on the far end.
Okay, so the report said cooking, and I'm trying to remember, cooking
travel and
travel's out though.
Yeah.
Competition reality on the way out.
Yeah.
But cooking and I forget the other thing.
Scripted formats.
Yeah.
On the rise.
Okay, so I'm based in America, and what we do in America is we watch and see what's working around the world before we buy stuff and start having trends. So it seems like we're always kind of, I think, on the latter end of that. And I know right now that, we do the taste, and it's a cooking concept. And I know that, CBS is doing the Great British Bake Off, which I'm really excited to see how that comes out and how they adapt it for the States. And NBC has at least one, if not more, cooking concepts. So I definitely think that the trend in cooking, I think we're going to see a lot of different cooking shows on the broadcast networks in the coming year.
Is that in the US or
in the
globally?
US. Yeah, I'm just speaking to the US.
Right.
We joke around. We're like, we've got Splash. Fox did their version. What are we going to have next? Celebrity luging. I mean, it's hard to tell what the trends are going to be in the States because there are just so, like I said, we tend to just kind of wait and see what works well around the world. We're not the most, how do I put this? We're not the biggest risk takers in the States. We like to see, this worked really well in the UK, so we're going to bring it over. So it's kind of a wait and see, but I definitely think cooking is we're going to see a lot of that. Probably cooking. And then in cable, though, I mean, there's so many channels in the States. There are at least like 80 channels where you can pitch ideas. And I'm really excited about the cable networks. And I think that in cable, it's like the Wild West, I think that, everybody's talking about Duck Dynasty. I mean, from around the world. I was in London a few days ago, and everybody wanted to ask me about Duck Dynasty. And I think that is, a really interesting show in that it's reality, but it's very, very heavily produced. And I know that a lot of cable channels are trying to replicate that, and they're trying to, find characters who are very willing to be produced. And so you're going to see in this next year a lot of reality sitcoms happening, a lot of shows that you could point to them and say, oh, that's the version of Green Acres, right? They're doing the Beverly Hillbillies. And they're all asking for that. And so it's going to be interesting to see if they can find characters who can do what the Duck Dynasty characters have done so well and be able to be produced and really, So anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. That's a good start. Trond, what did you think of the report? Were there things that rang true and things that you felt were off the mark?
No, I felt it was like what you could expect. As you said as well, there hasn't been that many new things the last 12 months. So, I represent more the Norwegian territory, which is far up in north of Europe and quite opposite of the States. We are like 5 million people, so it's a small territory. But I would say it's like the global challenge. It's the same in the sense that I know I have a few colleagues which are broadcasters in the auditorium, so I will be very polite. But there is, of course, the same as in the States. There is not a market which are willing to take humongous risk. Everybody wants to buy security. So it's, of course, hard to push new things. And then, you are on the ladder and watching what's happening in the rest of the territory. But we have the same situation as well. Food is something in Norway which hasn't been really big for 10 years. It has grown in the last 2 or 3 years, and more the broadcasters are doing cooking or variations of different food formats. And also as well, which is more or less universal as well, scripted and drama has pulling power in prime time, and everybody wants that. Of course, in our market, it's hard to produce within budget and make that affordable. But I think that if we look like 3, 4, 5 years ahead, I think that there is a growing market in scripted drama. Because if you have a proven record, and also if you can do that cost-effectively, it's, I wouldn't say easy sell, but there would be a market there.
Yeah, and your territories are doing quite well at that at the moment. I think there's this whole Nordic noir is really forging forward in that area, isn't it? Jennifer, what did you think of the report? What trends do you think are currently at large in the business?
Well, I think, like everybody said about, there's not so many new ideas. Really, everything's kind of a variation of an old idea. So what you're seeing is maybe a return to classics. So tried and tested formats that are for a broad audience, something like your Wheel of Fortunes, which are still on throughout Eastern Europe, and Mr. and Mrs. Catchphrase. ITV as a channel has recently brought back Saturday Night Takeaway after 3 years of being off the air. So I think channels are being conservative and just going with what already works, the original ideas.
Okay. Avi, what's your trend spotting monitor doing at the moment in terms of the global market? What's working, do you think?
Obviously, there is a big desire and actually, you can say even desperate for new prime time of shows. And it seems like, we danced, we sing, we ate, and we had enough of all of this, and there is need for new kind of prime time. It seems like that on the creative side, we are lacking for coming with new ideas. And again, all the basis of format is based on a patent. And if those patents cannot come from any creativity, they may become from technology-based. And I think this is something that we try to do, to try to focus more on technology and see if technology can enable us to bring the next generation of content. We saw it before on Virginia Report when she brought the Japanese, I think, format, the Noise, which is based on noise detector, or our format, which was the Catch, that based on a complete digital floor, that is also, all the digital element is built up in a way that the people at home will be able to use to play this game show on their digital touch screen at home. So those elements of interactivity, I think this is one thing. Another element that we still need to look around and look into like social elements within the society, because those will always be a need, in terms of television. What are the trends? We will always date, right? So dating show will be there. But what we see that our society is getting older, and older people does not get the place in the society they deserve to. They're still the majority of population, but they don't have a place. And for sure, they don't have a place on television. This is, for example, why we brought this market our new coaching show called The Grand Plan, which you take 3 grandmothers sharing their life experience and helping young people to go through this day's life.
Okay, thank you for that. Holger, what struck a chord in the stuff that you saw there, and how do you think that relates to what's really happening in the formats business worldwide?
I could agree with the report, because we have got some really great highlight shows, shiny floor shows like The Voice, like now the new one, which I like very much, Your Face Sounds Familiar. But those are always just for a limited run of weeks, and since there's a lack of shows that can run maybe for light entertainment shows for 20 weeks in prime time, there obviously is a resurgence of scripted formats in whatever variety they are coming.
Okay. What was the diagnosis?
I have to add after
Is there anything left to say?
I completely agree regarding the scripted formats. We're starting to see success with Prisoners of War, which most of you know as the American version Homeland. It's currently in pre-production in Russia. We have deals in place in CE, Latin America even. And in a way it makes sense, I think, because in scripted maybe even more than non-scripted, it saves you a lot of time in development. So it really makes sense. We're seeing success with our comedy Mother's Day, which is now being piloted in the US, in other regions. Traffic Light is now in its 4th season in Russia. So I completely agree with that. I was a bit surprised with the decline in reality competition. I know us at Keshet, we are very hard at work in terms of development to come up with the new big format in this area. And from my talks with peers, I feel the same in the world.
Right.
What is the next Big Brother? What is the next Survivor?
So the search is still on for that area.
Yes, I think
right.
it is.
Okay. Maybe we can just go around again. Maybe we'll go back this time. How are you doing business differently from the way that you did business last year? And how does the stuff that you have in development reflect that? I mean, what are broadcasters looking for? What are the trends in development? And how's the business model changing? Is technology influencing it? Is the economy influencing it? Is the digital market influencing it?
I think it's both, definitely. In terms of economy, budgets are shrinking. And as sellers, we are this year more than ever putting our money where our mouth is. And in the UK, for example, where we have set up a production hub, we are now willing and able to participate in deficit finance. So we have 2 scripted projects in development in Channel 4.
What are they?
I cannot say at this stage. They are based on Keshet's IP, which I think is a huge thing for us. Obviously, the UK is a seller and not an importer of IP. And if needed, we will invest money to finance deficit on these projects. So this is a new thing for us. And we are much more open to collaborations. I think you have to be these days in co-development, as I said, co-financing. And in terms of the digital as well, we are talking now to new clients, which I believe, by now actually should be referred as traditional clients, meaning the digital platforms, the Hulus, the Netflix. Prisoners of War is on Hulu, the Israeli version, English subtitles. This also presents a challenge, I think, in terms of what are you giving to your traditional clients, the channels, the linear channels, in terms of the ancillary, and how do you manage the windows? Very challenging, I think.
Yeah. Holger, what are you doing differently now that you weren't doing a year ago, and what does the market want that's changed?
I could agree more with Keren that we do a lot of collaboration. The past 3 years I was working for a younger skewing full entertainment channel in Germany, and at the time we had many time slot needs at the time and couldn't really fill them with light entertainment, so we took, which is kind of special in Germany but is now going to other countries as well, the scripted reality genre. And we merged that with the soap opera style because Big Brother was working for us, so we said, okay, let's script Big Brother in some way. And this is Berlin Day and Night, and this worked out really well. And it's a good example for a full collaboration between the channel and the production company who had the know-how of doing scripted reality shows in Germany. And we had the idea to put it into a soap opera and then co-jointly developed it because we needed it for the time slot, but there was really no format out in the market for us to grab.
Avi, same question. What's changed for you? Are the models changing? Is the economy changing?
The economy is definitely changing, with difficulties that some of the markets has, but it's also changing that at least in major market, the broadcasters are earning less, and you can see that the cable channel, the niche channel, are able to survive because they have more defined business model, which is slim, and I think we are now in a process that the major broadcasters are looking to learn and to find cost-effective way of production. So they are open for cooperation, and we do cooperate with some of them. They are open to create production hub, like, a game show like Still Standing, which was quite an expensive set. We are working on building those hub. Or if you look even for scripted, we spoke about scripted, they're looking for show that they can do and will be cost effective. Like one of our scripted drama that is very successful is The Naked Truth, which is suspense police drama that take place only at the police station. So you can focus on the character, focus on the level of writing, but you don't need an expensive car chase. So I think we need to be aware for the needs of our clients and come with the right creative response.
Okay. Jennifer, how are things changing within your business, and how does that reflect what's happening in the market?
I think for us, we want to work with everybody no matter what their budget is. And because the viewing habits are shifting and it's nonlinear, we have to think of other ways of revenue that's just not based on the advertising market. So at least at ITV, we partnered with an Israeli-based company called Screens, and they've taken our shows and turned some of them into apps. So we now have apps for The Chase, for weddings, Saturday Night Takeaway. So to bring that money back to the broadcasters or producers, because when the channels are feeling pressure on budgets, you have to still justify that format fee. It's just not the know-how, so it's making it more valuable to the players out there.
And in terms of monetizing those apps, are those things that people buy, or are they an ancillary part of the show that sponsors benefit from, or what?
It can be both, depending on what you need.
Okay, anything. Okay, cool. How do you think the Nordic market is changing, and how do you think broadcasters in that territory and around the world? What are they asking for that they weren't asking for 12 months ago?
I would say it's not a big change within the last 12 months. It's more or less the same, and for us as well, it's more or less the same business. The only thing we run a entertainment house with a production unit and a format unit as well. The only thing that, there are more clients asking for content or formats, and you need to adapt to that need as well. That is, I think we are seeing some kind of development in that market.
Okay. And Karrie, are you seeing new arrivals to help you with your financing? Are you packaging deals in a different way, or is it pretty much the same as it was 12 months ago?
Well, it's getting harder and harder in the States to retain rights. We've been hearing that for a while, but it's getting harder and harder and harder. And so one of the things we're really trying to do for 2013 is we're partially owned by ProSieben. And so ProSieben is the umbrella over Red Arrow, which is a group of creative companies who we are being really proactive about trying to work with this year to co-develop new ideas and try and get our ideas or the ideas we co-developed into those production companies, those creative companies, so we can get them like either a arable pilot or, something that's, a series that airs somewhere else that has ratings, that has some sort of history. Or if it's just a pilot, it's something tangible that the American networks can look at and can see how it's been produced. We're really proactively trying to do that. And outside of the Red Arrow companies, we are very, very open to working with creative companies from around the world in co-developing. It's great for that right situation because it's just becoming so difficult, and also just to get some material that the execs can look at. So. Okay.
You put the lights up a minute, please. And does anybody have any questions at this stage? If you do, just raise your hand. Can't see anybody at the moment, but aha. Down the front, could you let us know who you are before you ask the question, please?
Hi, my name is Ellen Lovejoy. I work for A&E Networks, and Duck Dynasty has obviously been a huge success for us, and there's a lot of discussion about, this type of genre emerging. And one of the big issues that has come up from our potential production partners is, how do you translate these kinds of shows? And I think, for us, for our types of shows that are working really well on our air, a lot of them are very cast dependent. And we've just really started to crack that in certain markets where to make local versions of Australian pickers or UK Pawn Stars. But from a broadcast point of view and from a partnership point of view, do you feel like there's more of an openness that you're seeing in your territories to this type of formatted show?
You mean sort of talent-driven?
So talent-driven, cast-driven shows.
Okay, who'd like to take that? Cast-driven shows in the style of Pawn Stars, big appetite for them? Is local casting working, a problem? Good thing, bad thing?
I think if I can put on my acquisitions hat as a channel, as a broadcaster in Israel, talent-based shows are tricky in terms of selling them. For us as a broadcaster, I guess the first question would be, what are we buying? What's the Bible for Duck Dynasty? And this is very, very tricky because if you need to cast your own talents, then what are you getting from the American show? So I think it's tricky. As a buyer for channels, it's a tricky one because then you'd say, okay, so I'll do it.
Anyone sort of more open to taking these big franchises and working in partnership with a broadcaster to make local versions? Is there a bigger appetite for that type of show?
I can only talk, for our market, Israel. I think for the main terrestrial channels, for the commercial channels, less. Probably more on the cable channels, definitely.
Okay. There was another question or two in the audience, I think. Yep.
I'm wheat producer from RTL Belgium. I would like to know, how do you explain it's always smaller countries considered as the most creative, being the most creative? Because when I see there are two representatives of Israel, we're talking about the Netherlands, we're talking about Norway. This morning I didn't see any huge format coming from Germany, from France. How do you explain this?
Interesting. Who would like to take that?
Because we are coming from a small country, it means that we have a very limited outlet within our territory. And if we want to create and if we want to expand, we need to look into the world as our market. And this is something that, we found out and analyzed about 6-7 years ago, and start developing and creating by understanding the needs of the international market and not only your local needs.
Holger, there must be some fantastic new formats knocking around in Germany at the moment. What are they?
Actually, I mean, this is one of the main complaints of the German producers, of course, that they say they have great formats, but usually they're in German and they're not even subtitled versions available, so it's really hard for an outside buyer to actually consider them as a format or as a finished buy. And obviously in Germany has for many years taken a lot of formats from the Netherlands. And I think this has something to do with that German broadcasters are very well, or have been and still are very well informed of what formats are working around the world, and have never had any problems with adapting them to the German markets. And but it's also at the same time then there are great formats and there are great creative people, I think, working within the German media business, but they have to compete against the best formats in the world to get their shows on the air. And obviously a lot of stations are risk averse, and it's always a lot of money, and of course it does help if a format is working in so many territories, then there's a good chance that in the German territory it will work as well.
Jennifer, why do you think it is that these small markets are cited as the creative powerhouses of the formats business?
It's not so much the small, it's more that the larger markets, I know in the UK they can be guilty of this. If you have these juggernauts that are the cornerstone of your schedule and the ratings are consistent, you're not going to change that. And it's up to the audience to dictate what's new, what's fresh. And if the audience isn't asking for anything new, then why change it?
Yeah. Karrie, I think one of the things that people seem to be saying in the survey was that for change to happen, broadcasters need to take more risks. Yet we're seeing that in these markets there's not a lot of creativity happening. Well, there is lots of creativity, but it's not, we've not seen it before, creativity. How do you get channels to take risks? Is there a strategy for convincing them it's an appropriate risk, or how do you go about it?
I think there are just certain territories, like the ones mentioned, that buyers from around the world, they're just taking more notice of what they're creating and producing. And so I think if you're a producer, you want to figure out a way where you're going to be able to either co-develop or get one of your shows into those territories to air, because I think that all of these risk-averse territories, they're really interested in what the Israelis are creating. We were talking about it. It's like, in America, if you have a show that's being pitched to you and it's Israeli, then you're gonna sit up and take notice, and for good reason. There's great stuff coming out of those. So I think it's smart to find a way to get, whether it's America, UK, whether it's Norway, whether it's Israel, figure out ways to get your projects into those territories, because I know the bigger markets will definitely take notice, and that'll have an effect.
It's interesting how this trend for Nordic drama has emerged, though, isn't it? And it has become quite a big part of the scripted format business. And I suppose how that developed was that certain broadcasters took some risks. BBC 4 in particular created a themed season and branded the fact that there was this subtitled Nordic noir and people started to find it. I mean, is it the case of doing something with the format of the broadcaster's schedule as much as doing something with the format of the show itself? Trond, what do you think about that?
I think, first of all, the Nordic drama is like different to the US drama in the sense it's a bit darker, and that has had some kind of appeal. But I think that the growth of Nordic drama has first of all to do with DR in Denmark, which has for like many years invested loads of money into drama, and they've been building a great staff that has turned out really good stuff, and that has made the whole Nordic region have something to stretch for, and that kind of manpower has spread.
But in order to get big channels across the world to take a risk on the reversion of The Bridge, for instance, or
I mean, the Bridge is like, I wish that we have done that. We didn't do that, but it's like fab. Everybody should do The Bridge.
As a principle, was it not that one small broadcaster was convinced to create a themed Strand night, around a certain sort of show? Could the same thing be done in other genres of formats, for instance? Is game show night on the cards, Avi, in any territories, or multimedia sort of parts of the schedule doable?
Multimedia and interactivity should be, you're trying to look for ways to connect, with your audience, and to have them connect to the brands that you create, and be able to generate traffic from one platform to another. So if you are able to reach to them wherever they are, then they are hooked to your brand. So this is, of course, a trend. And we were speaking about, taking a risk, and of course we need the cooperation of broadcasters of taking risk, but there's also us as a developers of show need to take risks and try to find new way of developing idea. For example, something that we are trying and launched 2 weeks ago, it's a concept called TV by the People. It's a concept that's based on crowdsourcing and crowd wisdom. So we created a website and opened it to the world, and asking people that have an ideas, not just put their ideas there, but also take part, when the ideas are chosen, take part in developing those ideas. We don't know if it's going to work, but we know that now technology is enabling us to use crowdsourcing and crowd wisdom. So let's try and engage it within creativity and see the results. Maybe something good will come out of it. Maybe it won't be now, but it will be in the future. But we need to explore new fields.
Okay. So one of the things that was clear that from the report were that there's no real big breakout formats according to the 231 people that took the survey. Would you each agree with that, or which shows of the past year do you think have impressed you in particular? Are there any shows out there that were ignored, do you think? Has someone missed a great format that hasn't that's really worthy of note over the last 12 months? Not of your own, but of other
no, I can
channels
talk about
out
my
there.
own if you want. No.
Has anyone seen an impressive format in the last 12 months? What do you think's worked really well? Anybody? There's a gentleman over here. If it's one of yours, it doesn't count.
Actually, it's not one of mine. It's one of Trond's, and it's called Ultimate Entertainer.
Are you distributing it?
No, sometimes I am, yeah. But you're talking about the lack of taking risks, and I thought that Trond has succeeded what nobody else has succeeded with in 10 years in Scandinavia, was convince a broadcaster to take a chance on a brand new talent quest show. For years and years and years, there's been all the Fremantle shows that are doing well. So I think it could be worthwhile for Trond to share with everyone. How did you convince NRK to take a huge risk on a huge budget show like The Ultimate Entertainer? How did you do that? Because everybody wants to do that, and everybody's screaming for the next thing, but nobody has the balls to actually take it when they see it. They always go for the cover my ass version of the Fremantle catalog.
Tell us the story.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, but it's not a great story. What it is that it's a shiny floor show called Ultimate Entertainer. As Jan said, I think it's the most expensive commission that NRK have done outside of the NRK. But I think it was like, for me, I think it's a mixture of many things. I mean, we spoke about security, that, I mean, all broadcasters, I mean, everybody wants security. And you need to build that, first of all, and then when you have a great idea, it's a great idea. So I would say it was an easy sell.
Karrie, what shows have impressed you over the last 12 months, just out there in the market? Is there anything that you've thought, oh yeah, that's changed the game a little bit?
Changed the game.
Or you'd watch it?
I really want to see, I want to see Rockstar Home Invasion be sold in the States. I think that's really fun. I didn't get it, unfortunately. I tried to get the format. But I think it's really fun, it's sweet. You know, Bayer's been saying, like, what's the next version of Super Nanny? And I just thought, when I remember watching it and just thinking, you know, it's subtitled, but there's something about it, there's heart to it, and there's comedy, and I like the way they mixed both. That really resonated with me.
Okay. Keren, I asked everybody to think about different elements that they'd put together in their mix to create the next generation of format hit. What would be in your recipe for development over the next 12 months, and what things will you be drawing on as you try and build your programming?
I think if the question was regarding genre and digital, specifically, so first of all, for us as a network, every show which we develop for prime time has to live outside the TV screen. So it's not really contained into a specific genre. I mean, even with Prisoners of War at the time, and this was 3 years ago, we launched the series with a very rich website, where the website, and this is a drama, you know, where the website had dedicated content to supplement the storyline that the viewers see, and it worked really successful, really well for us. So again, for us, it's not contained to one genre. If I need to be, you know, the cliche answer, and I'm sorry for being a cliche, would be, I think, cracking the game show, the digital tie-ins to game shows. Obviously, Money Drop showed us all how this can be done. We aired the local version of Money Drop in Israel as well, and it worked very well for us. We launched TV event game show, 50 Things You Have to Know, which in parallel to the studio competition, the entire nation played via the app, which worked really well for us as well.
Okay. Holger, what's your development strategy going forward in terms of the elements that you require to build the schedule?
I mean, we develop in all genres, I must say, but I think two trends are coming up specifically, and also if you look at the formats of the people sitting here with the three old ladies, I like that one very much, or if you have seen ITV Studios Boomtown, which I think is the funniest thing I've seen so far, that you mix docu-soap and put humor in it, comedy elements, mix those two genres. And then the second thing is that I'm looking at right now, we are doing a celebrity version of Big Brother for the first time in Germany. And we want to use, I mean, second screen has become very important for us as well. But I think the time should be there that it's not just playing along or extending the brand outside of the televisions, but I would like to see now for the first time that you actually use the back channel via live broadcast to influence the television program in a meaningful way. And those are the ideas that I think I'm really looking for.
As it's happening live.
As it's happening, involving the audience as they watch, to take part into something, but that also has a recurrence on what's happening on the TV screen.
So it is this blending of technology with traditional that's important.
Yes.
It seems for both of you at the moment. Avi, where do you sit on this issue?
You know, we are in the business of not knowing, right? If we knew how to create the next big things, or if any of the broadcasters knew what is the next big thing, they would have taken it or creating it. This is why I think that we, as creators of shows, we cannot sit or depend on somebody else to take a decision about our creativity. if there is an idea and we believe in it, we need to take the risk and develop it all the way and let them see that we can make it. Once they identify a good idea, when they see it on screen, then it's much easier to take the risk and take it. So our development philosophy in the last 2 years was taking the risk, come to the market with fresh new ideas that even was not on the air, and then let all the broadcasters see and give them the confidence that we work on them, develop them, and they are ready to go on the air. And if they're a good idea, they will be picked up.
And are there certain elements in your development agenda at the moment that you're trying to pair? I mean, are you doing dating with cooking, or barn dancing with space travel, or have you got any other take on it?
I think the major take that I think that we are trying, as I kind of mentioned before, it was the TV by the people, the possibility of using crowd wisdom and crowdsourcing. Okay.
Jennifer, same question to you. You know, when you're putting the ingredients together, what's in the pot this year?
Well, this year, Holger mentioned a new format we have called Boomtown, which is it's the conventions of a glossy sketch show meets reality. The thing is, these are real people being themselves, not actors. So, is it a sketch show? Is it a reality? And that's something nice and new that we're bringing to the market. But in the last year, one of the formats that I really loved, and again, it's from my own catalog, but was The Audience for Channel 4. And the premise of that show was on the basis of social media, everybody on Twitter, what do I wear, what do I eat, should I quit my job? And that's where The Audience came from. You have 50 people following you around on your day-to-day life for a week while you make a life-changing decision. And it was just something, I mean, I don't know if it was the altitude on the plane, but every time I turn on an episode, I just start crying. So it is something that I was excited about, and it was different, and yeah, that's definitely what I liked.
So you felt that was a worthy inclusion of a format that was missed?
I thought so. I thought it was, different, and it was nice, and that's been in the last 12 months.
It was mentioned a few times. It was one of the news that was mentioned a few times, but not enough.
We have quite a few territories that are just now starting to go to air, so hopefully it's not the last that you'll hear of it.
Yeah. Trond, for you, what does the development package include?
I mean, we are as well developing all over the line, but I think that we think there are a big challenge in developing something which I wouldn't say would be limited to a second screen, but it would be a broadcaster and more other platforms as well. Because I think that these days, TV, I mean, in the old days we said TV was a really strong medium, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's not that strong. I mean, it's taking a lot of competition from other entertainment factors as well. So I think that a lot of TV shows need support from other platforms as well, and to develop a show to have a show on TV that is supported by other platforms, not only the second screen, but that has a life, 24 hours, 7 days a week would be a great challenge, and yeah, we are battling that idea.
So, I mean, every single person so far has talked about the two-screen, the on-screen, the off-screen, the digital, but I suppose what we're seeing now, as opposed to a couple of years ago, is some real examples of that working. The audience, TV for the people, the extension of drama online. Karrie, sort of just bringing us home, is that the future for your development as well? Is this digital part still absolutely crucial, and are there real examples of how it's being rolled out?
Not as much in the States. Not as much in the States. It's all about content. It's about the broadcast content still. I mean, of course that, there are producers who go in and pitch the 360 angle, but it's really about what is that content that you're bringing in, just in America at least, that's going to push it over the edge. And there are a lot of different ways we develop at our company. One of the ways, we talk a lot about, long-standing formats that have been on the air for, like Biggest Loser or Survivor, that don't seem to really have any successful competitive shows or competing shows that that are in those genres. And we ask ourselves, why is that? Why isn't there a new weight loss show that's cut through everything? You know, ABC has tried recently, but, you know, what is, in the same way The Voice was a singing competition show that had just one really clear hook that was really freaking cool. Like, what is that version in weight loss? What is it, you know, is there a version where people are placed in a setting they have to survive on their own and be taken away from their own lives? Like, what is the new hook on already successful genres? And also, one other thing that's interesting, I've heard of broadcast network buyers saying to their executives, how can we take the success of shows in cable that are rating higher than our own shows? How can we replicate those on a network scale? And I don't know the answer yet. I don't know how you'd take like Duck Dynasty and sell something like that to ABC, you know? But it's just something interesting to think about when you see these ratings just, you know, go through the roof in cable, and knowing that the buyers in broadcast are saying, like, what can we do to get those eyeballs? It's just something to think about too.
Okay, we've got time for one more question if there is one. Put your hand up if there isn't. There's a question right down the front here, please. Just hang on for the mic. Oh, sorry, there's one at the back. We'll come to you next. We'll just do 2 questions. Just, yeah, gentleman at the back.
Yeah, just wanted to understand from a format seller's perspective that what are the 3 things that you look for when you buy for a format, and what is the usual time frame in these sales cycles, and how do you value a format? Like, what do you decide? How do you decide how much to pay for a format? And
Jennifer, do you want to take that one first?
You know, I work across so many markets that everybody likes to holiday in and not necessarily invest their money. And the thing is, with ITV, we have a very vast catalog, so we believe there is a format for everybody, and you know, it's just about finding what you need, and we'll work with your budget. I mean, you can't expect to come to any of us and try to buy, you know, this Prisoners of War and say I want to pay $500 for it or 2,000 shekels. You just can't, because you know it's a brand. But I'm sure the same way we have a huge catalog, you know, Keren will gladly find you something else that's in the same remit, a drama that's, you know, long running.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take one last question. The lady down the front here.
Thanks. I was just curious about Carrie's comment on food competition shows. She was saying that they're emerging. And I was curious of the views of the rest of the panel on food competition shows, because it seems like there's an awful lot of them out there.
Saturated, unsaturated.
Well, come dine with me. Being it's not fully a cooking competition. It's more of we find it to be entertainment as well. So I still think that a lot of these cooking shows do offer an entertainment value as well. And, you know, something that can be stripped is even more appealing to most of the channels.
Okay, well, thank you for staying, everybody. Don't forget to pick up your copy of the report, and thanks very much to the panel.